Hey guys, welcome back, and we are continuing my college football deep dive series. Today we are doing my number 4 team entering the 2025 season, and that is the Ohio State Buckeyes, the reigning national champions. They lost a ton of talent to the NFL this year, but they still project to be one of the 5 best teams in college football. Remember, this is my ranking on them heading into the year. I've got them currently ranked 4th. They've got the opportunity to exceed this ranking, but I also think they've got the opportunity to finish well below this ranking. So we're going to talk about this roster, talk about the new additions, the coaching staff. We're going to be talking about the new quarterback and so much more. But if you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. We are going through my top 25 teams in college football. And also be sure to check out my Patreon page. I've got my full guide for the Ohio State Buckeyes available for $5 via my Patreon. It's a one-time purchase, or you can sign up for $5 a month and get access to my 2026 draft guide, all of each individual top 25 teams, their guide, their notes on all their players. There's a lot of really good stuff in there that I really think you guys are going to enjoy. Leave a like on this video. Let me know, what do you guys think? Do you think Ohio State is going to be better than the 4th team? Or do you think they're going to finish below it? How do you feel about this team entering the year? Would love to have conversations with you guys down in the comment section below. But guys, let's not waste another second. Let's go ahead and kick this off with the Ohio State Buckeyes, and let's take a look at the portal and the recruiting for the Buckeyes. So it starts off with the coaching staff, which overall, I am going to say is a downgraded group. Chip Kelly ended up taking the offensive coordinator job with the Las Vegas Raiders, and Jim Knowles kind of left out of nowhere. He ends up taking the defensive coordinator job at Penn State, who was our number 3 team in these rankings. They bring in Brian Hartline, or what shall I say, promote Brian Hartline, a legendary wide receivers coach. But they also bring in Matt Patricia, who I had not been moved by his defenses in years past. Brian Hartline, a brand new offensive coordinator. We really have no idea what type of offense he is going to run at this point. So overall, I am going to say downgraded. I thought their coaching staff was absolutely phenomenal last year, and they didn't really do anything that excites me there. At the quarterback position, I'm going to say they slightly downgraded there as well. You lost Will Howard. He ends up going to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the NFL draft. You also lose Air Noland and Devin Brown. I know it shows in the added category. That's a mistake on my end. Devin Brown ends up hitting the portal. He goes to Cal. Air Noland goes to South Carolina. You bring in Tavian St. Clair, a 5-star recruit. That's a really exciting get for the Buckeyes. We'll talk about him on the quarterback portion. And you bring in Eli Brickhandler, a transfer from Houston Christian. So interesting names there, but you lost an NFL quarterback in Will Howard, who just won a national championship. So I'm going to say slightly downgraded there. As for the running back position, this might be one of the biggest downgrades of any team's position in all of college football. You lose both Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, both of whom were top 40 NFL draft picks. You end up bringing in C.J. Donaldson from West Virginia, who I quite like, as well as 2 true freshmen in Bo Jackson and Anthony Rogers. It's a downgraded position group, without a doubt, though. Henderson was one of the focal points of this offense. Judkins really turned it on late, so I'm going to say they downgraded there. Wide receiver room, I'm going to only give it a slightly downgraded here. You lose Emeka Egbuka. Obviously, he goes top 20 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jaden Ballard hits the transfer portal. He goes to Wisconsin. And then Kojo Antwi ends up going to Colorado State. But they continue to add these big-time recruits at the wide receiver position. Quincy Porter, Bodpin Miller, Phillip Bell, Dazee Jones, all of those guys are going to end up being impact players, I believe, for this Ohio State team. All of them are true freshmen, so you got to think maybe one of those guys can break out for you, but overall, I think this is a slightly downgraded group. And then as for the tight end position, I think this is an upgrade for the Ohio State team. They end up losing G. Scott. He's an undrafted free agent pickup. You lose Patrick Gurd as well, but you had Max Clare, one of the 5 or 10 best tight ends in all of college football. So I'm going to say they upgrade there. Moving on, and I did notice another mistake here on my part. We'll just go to the edge rusher position really quick. I haven't upgraded there. I would give this a slightly downgraded because I actually do like the moves they made. You lose JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer to the NFL, two major pieces for this edge rusher room, but I do think in a weird way this could be a better group. They're obviously going to have Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry and CJ Hicks moving to the edge. But you bring in Logan George from Idaho State, who is awesome. Bo Atkinson, a late addition to the team from the spring portal. He comes in from North Carolina. And then two young freshmen in Zion Grady and Epi Citinelli. It's going to be a downgraded group. Misspoke on that one, messed up on that. But I don't think it's going to be a much worse group. Unlike the offensive line, which I do think is going to take a major step back. They lost a ton of pieces on this offensive line. Donovan Jackson goes in the first round of the Minnesota Vikings. Josh Simmons goes in the first round of the Kansas City Chiefs. Seth McLaughlin, Josh Fryer, two undrafted pickups, but I think without a doubt, Seth McLaughlin probably could have been a top 100 pick if he doesn't end up getting hurt. And then you lose some depth. You lose Zen Mikulski. He goes to Indiana. George Fitzpatrick, Miles Walker, two other depth pieces on the O-line that hit the portal. And I do like some of the moves. Ethan Onyanwa, the transfer from Rice, is phenomenal. We'll talk about him. Philip Daniels is a transfer from Minnesota. Was up and down his true freshman season. And then you bring in three freshmen here. Carter Lowe, Jake Cook, Javon McFadden. We'll see. It's very rare that true freshmen can make an impact immediately. And then they bring in Justin Terry, a transfer from West Virginia who redshirted last season. So a lot of holes to fill on this offensive line for Ohio State, and they're going to have four new starters on the offensive line this year. In terms of the interior defensive line, I think it's another downgraded group. You lose Tyleik Williams, another first-round pick from the Buckeyes. Ty Hamilton, he ends up getting drafted later on, and then Hiro Kanu, we talked about him in the first episode of this deep dive series. He ends up transferring to Texas. And they didn't add anybody on the interior of this defensive line. So it's a downgraded group. As for the linebacker room, I'm going to say slightly downgraded. You lose Cody Simon and Gabe Powers, but I actually like some of these moves. Ty Howard, a transfer from Duquesne. Tarvos Alford and Riley Pettijohn, two pretty high recruits out of the linebacker position. So just a slightly downgraded linebacker group. And then as for the secondary here, they made some moves here, without a doubt. I'm going to say their cornerback room stays neutral. Despite losing Denzel Burke and Jordan Hancock to the NFL, I really, really like true freshman Devin Sanchez. Jordan Woods, I think, can be a contributor as well. You lose Calvin Simpson-Hunt. He transfers out to Baylor, but I do think it's a neutral quarterback room. I thought Denzel Burke was bad for this team last year, so overall, I think it's neutral. As for the safety position, slightly downgraded here. You lose Lathan Ransom and Jaden Bonsu, but you bring in Fahim Delane, another big-time recruit. We'll talk about him in the safety portion, but I really liked some of the stuff he showed in high school, and I think he can be a contributor for this Ohio State team. So a lot of downgrades for this Ohio State team, which I think opens us up for being a very interesting conversation because we have seen, whether it be Florida State and the team up north last year, teams that have these really big, heavy, like exoduses, if you will, it doesn't always go smoothly, especially in this transfer portal era. So I think there is a world where this could be a disappointing season for Ohio State. But let's go ahead and talk about this team a little bit in depth, starting off with the coaching staff. And look, Ryan Day saved his job last year. There is absolutely no question about it. I think if they don't go on to win the national championship, there's a pretty good chance that this team has a different coach. I think Mike Vrabel very easily could be the head coach of Ohio State if they don't go on to win the national championship because, look, as good of a coach down the stretch as Ryan Day was for this team, there has been a lot of ups and downs throughout the Ryan Day experience with Ohio State fans. Obviously, they've gotten close and knocked on the door with the national championship the last few years, but they finally got over the hump. I think the big one for this team, can they beat the team up north? That's going to be the big question mark, and he just hasn't had a lot of success going in there. Obviously, they get kind of embarrassed last year as the heavy favorites end up blowing that game. I think there's a lot riding on that this year, but in terms of his coaching style, another one of these CEO head coaches. We talked about it with James Franklin, but he is a guy that is going to bring in really good coordinators and kind of let them do their job. But he is the leader of this team, the unquestioned leader, whether it be in press conferences. Like, this is the most vocal guy on the team. He puts the right guys in place, and he's done a really, really good job of not just recruiting, but developing. He seems to always have a deep pipeline of young guys coming in, and they get the most out of their players. There's absolutely no question about that. This is going to be his biggest challenge yet, though. You don't have CJ Stroud on this team. You don't have Will Howard. This team is going to be really interesting to see what they look like with the quarterback position. But I think Ryanday, without a doubt, did a good job down the stretch. I know there have been ups and downs, like I said, but his job is safe right now because he won a national championship. He brought something to Columbus that hasn't been done in the last few years. That's exciting, and I think he is definitely on the upward trajectory because it definitely looked like they figured some stuff out down the stretch. But does he have the right coordinators in place? I think that's the big question. Let's start with Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator, who I'm not the biggest fan of. I think he's a fine defensive coordinator, another one of these disciples from the Bill Belichick tree. And look, we've seen it in the NFL. I think we've seen a little bit of it in college. It's very, very difficult for these Bill Belichick coordinators to go on and make a name for themselves. Matt Patricia was the defensive coordinator for New England for a long time, ended up getting the head coaching job for the Detroit Lions, and it was a disaster. He was not a good coach there in Detroit. But in terms of the defense that he's going to run, I think there's some things to be excited about because he is going to play in multiple different fronts. You'll play the 3-4, you'll play the 4-3, but in terms of the coverage opportunities, I think there's some really fun stuff that they could do. There's a lot of man coverage that he likes to run, but he likes to bring pressure, loves to play cover zero, bring all out blitzes. But this is a defensive coordinator that played a lot of cover one, a lot of cover three, single high safety, play guys one-on-one. You got a little bit of protection on the back end. I think he's got the personnel to do that this year with Ohio State, and I fully expect him to run that. In terms of what their pass rush is going to look like, I think, like I said, he's going to want to play in multiple. Whether it be a 3-4, you're going to bring blitzes. In some ways, I think it could be similar to what you saw from Jim Knowles last year in terms of just knowing when to dial up blitzes, knowing the right coverages to call at the right times. Like, there's some interesting things there with Matt Patricia. There's no doubt about it, but the track record gives me a little bit of weariness about what is he going to look like with this Ohio State team, and is he the right guy? Jim Knowles was fantastic for this team. Matt Patricia, I know there was a lot of upset people when they brought in Patricia, so we'll see what ends up happening. I have my reserves about it, but I am open to the idea that he could be really good. Maybe he just didn't work as an NFL guy, but we'll definitely see. As for Brian Hartline, this is really the interesting conversation because this could go one of two ways. We know Brian Hartline is a legendary receiving coach. It seems like every year he's bringing in a 5-star. He's developing. Look at what he did with Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, and now you got Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Brandon Inniss. He consistently is bringing in wide receiver talent, and they consistently have one of the best wide receiver rooms in college football. He was getting some head coaching looks. I believe West Virginia interviewed him, but Ohio State internally promotes him. He's moving up to the offensive coordinator position. We have no idea what type of offense this team's going to run. I expect it to probably be similar. They're going to run spread. They're going to want to play more of an air raid offense, get these receivers involved, but also use a balanced attack, a little bit on the ground. They've got good running backs. What I do worry about is he just a good position coach? That's going to be the big question. Can he draw up an offense that is respectable and that can win on a weekly basis? We don't really know. I think there's a world where he is phenomenal as an offensive coordinator this year, and he's a head coach for another program next year. I also think there's another world where it might not work out, and he might not still be in this position next year. It's really hard to gauge. I think if I had to bet, it's going to be the first one. I think he's going to do a really good job. Players respect him. He is a really good offensive mind. He knows how to draw up, especially with the receivers. I think he's going to be able to get those guys involved, and I'm pretty excited to see what he's going to look like. But this is an interesting team because they coming off a national championship, but the coaching staff is completely different. Usually, I mean, outside of the exception last year where Harbaugh ends up jumping to the NFL, like most of the time you win a national championship and you're running it back, you're getting the same guys. Not only do you have new coordinators, but you have a completely new roster. I'm going to be interested to see how Ohio State can respond to this, but it is going to start at the most important position in the sport, the quarterback spot. Now, I have Julian Sayin as the starter right now. I think he is probably going to start for this team. I've got him as an 80 overall right out the gate, but he is in a quarterback competition right now with Lincoln Kienholz. We'll talk about him, but Julian Sayin, one of the most interesting quarterbacks here, initially committed to Alabama, transferred to Ohio State last year. He played 14 snaps for the Buckeyes in 2024. He's drawn comparisons to J.J. McCarthy. Like, this is a very heavily sought-after recruit, and there's some things to really, really like about his game. I think the way he throws the ball, look, as a pure thrower of the football, he might be better than what you had from Will Howard last year. He is lightning quick with the release. The ball flies out of his hand. I think he's a great athlete. He has the ability to make plays with his legs. I think he's a really good processor. Going back to high school, watching some of the spring tape, this is a guy that reads the field. He scans, he uses his eyes really well. I think his footwork is really good in the pocket, and he doesn't stare down one read for too long. That's what you want to see from a young quarterback. There's a lot to really like there. I think his arm talent is phenomenal. I think he has the ability to hit the deep ball on a consistent level. He's got really good throwing mechanics all around. I will say, I want to see him bring his throwing motion up a little bit. I feel like he throws it a little bit more to the side, and I don't love that. But overall, I think he has some really nice potential. But is he going to hit this high ceiling? Because in the snaps we watched, his accuracy was still all over the place. I thought he had some issues of overthrow, spraying the football on some spots that you didn't necessarily want to see. I also didn't think he felt pressure really well. For a quarterback that is as athletic as Julian Sayin, I wanted to see his pocket presence be a little bit better. I thought there were times where there would be a blitz, he wasn't able to recognize it, and he ends up taking a sack as a result. Obviously, like I said, want to see him clean up the throwing motion from the sidearm, bring it up a little bit. But I am betting on Julian Sayin. From everything we've heard, this is a super competitive guy. There is a lot riding on this because if he doesn't work out, I think this whole team is going to crumble as a result. But he's in probably the best position to succeed in all of college football because look at who he's throwing the ball to. The most loaded receiving group in the entire country. So can Sayin be the guy? Yes, I think he can. I think he's got the traits in terms of the arm talent, the athleticism, the processing. I think it's all there. Can he clean up some of the accuracy? Can he, be a little bit more quick and not so awkward with some of his release? And my other note on him, he's a little bit undersized. He's 6'1", 203 pounds. Not the biggest quarterback in the world. That could hold him back in terms of being an NFL prospect. But as a college quarterback, I definitely think he could be really talented. I think his floor is probably what you got from Kyle McCord. And look, Kyle McCord has had his ups and downs, but he still was a good quarterback. Wasn't a good quarterback to Ohio State standards, but I think that's probably the floor of what you get in Julian Sayin. And I think the ceiling is a Heisman guy. I really think he's got that type of upside, and I think Ohio State could potentially have a really good quarterback this season because based on everything we're hearing, it looks pretty good. So I've got him coming in as an 80 overall. But if he doesn't work out, Lincoln Kienholz is right there. He is a very interesting quarterback to kind of monitor because he's a little bit bigger at 6'3", 207 pounds. Didn't play in 2024, but he's been with the Ohio State team a little bit longer. And I think he's a little bit interesting because I think he's got the good size that you look for. 6'3", 207 pounds. Another really good athlete. I thought he did a good job of making plays with his legs, extending plays, and being able to run. I think he's got a really good throwing motion, though. He throws with phenomenal touch. He can put some zip on it, fit it into tight windows. The ball absolutely flies off his hand. He's got a really pretty spiral. I mean, there's a lot to really like about him in terms of what he does as a passer in his upper body. And I like his athleticism and I like his size, but the footwork is inaccurate, or inconsistent, I should say. Throws off a flat base way too often. Want to see him, shuffle those feet a little bit more. Step into your throws a little bit more. I think he could get a lot more velocity, and that could help because I think based on what you saw, he's got a good arm, but I don't think it's great. That's ultimately the differentiator between him and Sayin, because I think Sayin has a great arm. I think he's got a cannon. I don't really think Kienholz has that. And so I got him a little bit lower. I definitely think there's a world where he could be the starter down the road. And if it's not for Ohio State, I think he's going to start for somebody down the line. But I've got him as a 78 overall. And then the 5-star, Tavian St. Clair, the number 3 quarterback in college football, 6'4", 225. So if you want to talk about size, Tavian St. Clair has it. He played both baseball and basketball in high school. And his arm is probably the best of the 3 quarterbacks. I think he's got an absolute cannon, can hit passes at all 3 levels. His throws, I don't like to say this because it's very unclear, but there are quarterbacks that you can just see when they throw the ball, it's different. Like the ball comes off their hand a little bit different than some of the other guys. Tavian St. Clair, it's different. The way that the ball comes off his hand is special. There's some special stuff in there with the arm talent. He is a phenomenal thrower, and the sky is the limit for him as a passer. Can throw the ball at a variety of different angles, and I think he's a really interesting passer. He's another great athlete that I think the design quarterback run stuff is definitely going to be in play for St. Clair. I don't think he's going to play much this year. He's probably going to redshirt because I think he needs to develop a little bit. I think his accuracy is still a little bit all over the place. Going to need to clean up on some of the mechanics here and there. There were a lot of plays that he just felt like he telegraphed a lot of his passes. He's got to do a better job of, processing, reading the field a little bit more. But next year, I think if Sayin has a really good year, maybe it's good enough to go to the NFL. There's going to be a quarterback competition between Kienholz and St. Clair that I think St. Clair probably would be the favorite to win right now. He looks phenomenal, and he is definitely the quarterback to watch down the pipeline. But Eli Brickhandler is definitely an interesting one. I think he'll probably be the QB3 this year. Like I said, I expect St. Clair to transfer. But Eli Brickhandler, 3-star recruit in the 2023 class, played for NC-A&T, transferred to Houston Christian, and then he's at Ohio State now. So this is the type of story you want to see, just working his way up the competition level. He's 6'2", 195 pounds. He's not the biggest guy in the world. His pocket feels not great, but I love his release. I think he's a really fun quarterback in terms of when he takes off with his legs. He has speed. He's got shiftiness. I think his ball placement's really good. I think he has good arm talent. He's really good in the intermediate parts of the field. I think he's going to have to work on his processing. Like I said, he is definitely a depth quarterback for Ohio State right now. And maybe he can get onto the field a little bit. Was definitely a late addition to this team. But I don't think Brickhandler is a bad 3rd quarterback to have. And this Ohio State team is going to be really interesting to monitor in terms of what is this quarterback room going to look like. Because if you're getting good play from Julian Sayin, this team could be in a really good spot to make the college football playoff again, make the Big Ten title game. But if things are not looking great and he's turning the ball over and the accuracy's not there, and this could be a tough season for Ohio State, and there's a non-0% chance that that is the case. So while I am betting against it, I think this is the most important position group for Ohio State this year because the quarterback, it is the most important position in the sport. And I think saying he's got a lot of hype. Let's see if he can live up to it. But moving on to the running back position, look, I'm interested to see what happens. We talked about in the intro, you lose Travion Henderson, you lose Quinshon Judkins. You got 4 running backs on the roster right now, C.J. Donaldson, James Peoples, Bo Jackson, Anthony Rogers. This is going to be interesting because I think this is equally as important to Sayin's development because look, at least the previous quarterbacks had a run game to fall back on. this is going to be interesting to kind of see. James Peoples is listed as the number one back on this team. His sophomore had 55 carries in 2024 as a true freshman. And there's some stuff that I really, really like about his game. I think this is a great running back duo in terms of if you were putting two running backs in a room together, you would want two very different style backs. And I think Donaldson and Peoples are very, very different. Peoples a little bit undersized, 5'10", 203. Donaldson is 6'2", 238. But Peoples is the outside zone speed back on this team. I think his long speed is phenomenal. His vision is fantastic. He hits cutback lanes really well. He's super light on his feet. He's shifty. He's got a jump cut to hit the lanes. And like I said, when he hits the second gear, he's electric in the open field. You very well could argue I should have the arrow pointing up on James Peoples because in limited snaps last year, Peoples was electric. He made big plays. He took it to the house. And there's definitely some things there that are exciting. I expect him to be the lead carry getter for Ohio State this year in just his true sophomore season. So there's some real excitement there. But I love CJ Donaldson, and I have him slightly ranked higher. One, we've had a bigger sample size of it. But two, I think he can do some of the same things Peoples can do at a bigger frame. And my big issue with Peoples, I don't think he's a power runner. I don't think he's going to turn his legs for extra contact. That is exactly what you're getting from CJ Donaldson, a guy that was kind of a third back for West Virginia. Jaheim White was the number one, but Donaldson has a really interesting story. He is a former tight end, converted running back, and he just wants to run through the chest of defenders. Keeps his legs moving constantly. He falls forward. I think his contact balance is really impressive, but he has some quickness. He has the ability to make jump cuts. Despite having a bigger frame, I think he's pretty quick. I think his footwork's good. I think he plays with power. He's got good legs. He is still learning some of the position. I think his vision is still up and down. His long speed is not elite. And I think he was more of an outside guy, which is interesting because he has such great the ability to run in between the tackles, you would think, based on his frame. I think he definitely could improve his vision, though. That's really the big thing for me. He's still kind of learning the position. I believe it's only his third year playing running back, but I think he's one of the most slept-on running backs transfers in all of college football this year because Donaldson's been productive the last 2 years for West Virginia, and he's going to a team where I think he's going to be asked to make plays. I think he can block a little bit as well. His hands can improve a little bit as a receiving option, but there's definitely some potential there for him to be a good running back. But I do like some of the depth here. Two true freshmen coming in. Bo Jackson could be a true freshman impact player for this team. He's 6 foot, 210 pounds. The vision could be a little bit better and maybe could be see some more nuance from him, but the speed is phenomenal. I think his breakaway speed was electric. He's got a great frame. He's got great contact balance, can run in between the tackles, can be a good receiving option, had great hands. He had route running upside out of high school. Look, Bo Jackson looks electric. I wouldn't be surprised if he is the number one back on this team by the end of the year because I think his traits, his size, his speed, his power, it's all there. Obviously, like I said, you want to see some more vision. You want to see him be a little bit more consistent in that phase. But I got him as a 77 as a true freshman. I think he could be really good. As for Anthony Rogers, 5'8", 190 pounds. Nickname is Turbo. And that's kind of the player he is. He reminds me a lot of Devon Achane. Really small, but incredibly electric in the open field. Good contact balance, quick feet, can take the ball the distance anytime he touches the ball. He's not much of a receiver, not a great blocker. He is going to be a speed threat, a gadget type of running back. Maybe they use him as a returner. I definitely think there is a world where he could be used in that phase because he is so electric with the ball in his hands. But that's your running back room for Ohio State, and this is an interesting group. I think they've got a well-rounded group. You got some power, you got some speed, you got some young guys, you got some veterans. There's a lot of really fun things to work with. Still a lot of unprovenness with this running back room, though. We'll see kind of the way that they want to be utilized in Brian Hartline's system, but I like the group. I think Peoples could have a really good year. I think Donaldson is definitely a name to watch as a breakout candidate for the 2026 NFL draft. I just don't think a lot of people are talking about him, and I think he has the potential to be a good player. But like I said, Bo Jackson is the guy I have my eyes on because I think he could really break out as a true freshman. But guys, let's just talk about Brian Hartline's bread and butter, the wide receiver room. You guys have been waiting for it. I know there's probably a lot of people that skipped just to hear my thoughts on Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith, I've been on the record saying, I do a lot of NFL draft evaluations. For those of you that don't follow the channel regularly, Marvin Harrison Jr. was the best wide receiver prospect I had ever studied. I didn't know that it would ever be topped, whether it be the route running, the hands, the footwork, the speed. Everything that you wanted in a receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. had, and I still stand by that. Jeremiah Smith is so unbelievably good. I think he's way better than Marvin Harrison Jr. was. And when I say way better, that's not like hyperbole. Wow, hyperbole. I think he is the best wide receiver prospect maybe in the history of the sport. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. What he did as a true freshman in the college football playoff is unheard of. It's unbelievable. I mean, everything you want in a receiver, I think you're getting from Jeremiah Smith. Do you want elite routes? Jeremiah Smith is phenomenal. His deep ball route running really, really impressed me. He can stop and go. He can separate across the middle. You can use him as a gadget player. He's electric in the open field. I mean, I think, let me pull this up here. He is 6'3", 215 pounds. This is a guy with great speed. You can get him the ball in space. You saw it in the Notre Dame game. They run the play Alabama ran. He's just a physical specimen. Elite burst off the line of scrimmage. The quickness is electric. The route running is great. The release package, he can separate from press better than just about any player I've ever watched. The hands, this dude catches everything. He catches everything. One hand grabs, the sideline catches, you name it. Jeremiah Smith has it. He is the best wide receiver prospect maybe in the history of the sport, and he is an unbelievable talent. I have him as a 99 overall. If I could go up to 100, if I was doing that in this series, I would, because I think Jeremiah Smith is a borderline perfect football player. If I had to critique anything that he doesn't do well, he's not a great blocker. He doesn't do much as a blocker, but it's very rare that you get true freshmen that can make the type of impact that Jeremiah Smith did as a true freshman. And he just shattered expectations. He was the number 1 overall recruit, stepping in for Marvin Harrison Jr., who, like I said, was an unbelievable talent. And he far exceeded all expectations. I would say, as a big basketball fan, he is probably the Wemby of the NFL. Just the most hyped up prospect you can imagine that somehow lives up to every expectation. Jeremiah Smith is a absolute freaking dog, and I think he's only going to get better in year 2. I was just blown away with what this guy can do. You look at the rest of the wide receiver room, though, it's good. It's a really good group. I'm going to be a little bit lower here on the consensus than most people because I think this is a great group, a lot of depth, a lot of upside. I got the arrow pointing up on Brandon Ennis. I really like the tight end acquisition. If I was ranking the wide receiver rooms we've done so far, I definitely think this would still be number 1, but we'll go back to the face cam here. Carnell Tate's really interesting to me because I think he's a good wide receiver. I do. I think the guy separates really well. His footwork is really, really good. I think he knows how to get open. The hands are really reliable. He's a guy that just doesn't drop many passes. He dropped the really ugly one in the playoffs against Texas. Outside of that, his drop rate was really, really good. He's shown the ability to be able to make plays at all 3 levels. I think he's got a pretty good frame at 6'3", 191. He's a willing blocker. Like I said, there's a lot to really like about his game, but if we're talking about him as a NFL draft player, I am a little bit lower on Carnell Tate than I think the consensus is going to be. While I think he's a good athlete that has good footwork, I wouldn't say he's great. I don't think he's challenging DBs deep. I don't think he has the long speed to consistently win at the catch point deep down the field. That's a little bit of a concern. I didn't think he was the most twitchy player in the world. I thought he was a smooth route runner, but there wasn't a lot of suddenness, not a lot of twitch in his game that does concern me a little bit. I also thought in terms of contested catchability, I wanted to see a little bit more. He's 191 pounds, definitely has the frame to bulk up a little bit more. I want to see that from Carnell Tate. I really think there's something in there for him to be an elite player. I have a second round grade on him. I'm a little bit lower on him than the consensus. I've seen some lists put him at like number 8 in terms of college receivers. I just can't really get there, especially with all the great true freshmen that you have. I've got him as an 88 overall. I think he's a good player. I don't know that he's ever going to be elite, but when you got Jeremiah Smith, that's all you need. He might be one of the best wide receiver 2s in the entire country, and that's all you can really ask for. In terms of your slot receiver, you got Brandon Inniss. Interesting player, a 4-star recruit in the 23 class. Didn't play a ton, a very limited role for the Buckeyes last year. He's a little bit thin. He's listed at 203 pounds. I think he's probably plays smaller than that, but I liked what he showed in limited snaps, and I think he's going to get better. He's a really good route runner. He can make a lot of plays in motion. They like to bring him in jet motion, get him the ball in space because he is a good athlete that's got good hands, can make plays after the catch. So I've got the arrow pointing up on Brandon Inniss. I think he's going to be a good player. Got him as an 81 based on what we saw this past year at Ohio State. I don't really know that I can go much higher than that, but the upside for Brandon Inniss is high, and I definitely think there is a world where he can be, a good, borderline great wide receiver for Ohio State. We'll talk about the wide receiver depth really quickly. We'll talk about one guy that didn't end up making the graphic, and that is going to be David Adolph. What a name. All names team probably. Played 29 snaps in 2024, but he's in his 3rd season with the Buckeyes. Was a walk-on in 2022. I graded him as a 70. Probably not a guy that's going to make much appearances, but I think he's going to be a nice special teamer for you. The highest rated guy is another true freshman. Oh no, did Ohio State do it again? Quincy Porter is awesome. He is phenomenal. The number 4 wide receiver in the country at 6'4", 205 pounds. Competed in track and field in high school. The number 4 wide receiver in the country, 5-star recruit. I mean, just everything you wanted to see from a high school receiver, I thought you saw. The size, it checks out. I think he is phenomenal in contested catch opportunities. The guy caught everything. He was physical at the catch point. Ohio State probably did it again. I think they're going to have another electric true freshman receiver. Obviously, comparing it to Jeremiah Smith is unrealistic, but everything you want. The good contested catch ability, the ability to pull away deep. I think he's got great speed. He's got shiftiness. He can separate in terms of his footwork, in terms of being a good deep ball route runner. He had contact balance to make plays after the catch. Made some plays as a blocking threat, which you don't really see from a lot of young receivers. My only big critique, just wanted to see a more expansive route tree from him. And if he can do that, and he will, Ohio State doesn't run a simple route tree. This could be a really big year for Quincy Porter. I got him as a 79 as a true freshman. Watch out for him to be an impact player for this Ohio State offense. Then you got Bodpin Miller, the other true freshman receiver that they brought in. A 4-star recruit from Ontario, played quarterback, played basketball. Did have some reps at receiver. It's hard to really gauge what he is. He's a natural athlete. He had wheels. He had the ability to high point the ball. Just didn't get a lot of reps as receiver. Played a lot of quarterback at Ontario. So I got him as a 72 early on. We'll see if he's able to develop into being something more than that. But right now, there were just limited reps on him, so I can't really put him much higher than that. Mylan Graham, I got a 76 overall, a redshirt freshman from this team. 6'1", 185, but is electric after the catch. He knows how to set defenders up, completely jukes them out of their shoes. He's got length, he's got speed and burst off the line of scrimmage. He's got physicality as a route runner, he has the ability to make plays as a route runner, but I wanted to see a little bit more from him. Felt like a lot of gadget plays in high school. They got him the ball and jet sweeps and motions and things like that. Again, more nuance in his route tree, but he's in his 2nd year with the team. I think he could have a big one. Phillip Bell, another true freshman. I got the eyes on Phillip Bell. I really like him. Great release package. He plays physical at the catch point at 6'1", 195. He knows how to win the 50-50 balls consistently, which you'll love to see. He's a good route runner to all three levels. My only question, is he a great athlete? I didn't think so. I thought he was way more quick than he was fast. So there needed to be a little bit more there, but definitely think there is a world where Phillip Bell could be another one of these true freshman receivers that could make an impact for Ohio State. But we'll see kind of what happens. Another receiver that's another true freshman I have my eyes on is Desi Jones. He's a 76 in my rating, another 4-star recruit, a good deep ball route runner with the ability to track the ball in the air. He's not super big at 5'10", 185, just not very physical, but again, there's potential there. And then the last receiver we'll talk about is Bryson Rogers. He's a decent route runner, saw the field a little bit for Ohio State this past year. I just didn't think he was a great separator. I don't think he consistently was able to win at the catch point. I thought he was a little bit slow out of his breaks at times. You know, he's an okay route runner, but just not a super fluid athlete. So, yeah, Ohio State has the deepest wide receiver room in the entire country. I don't think anyone's going to dispute that. And when you got a superstar like Jeremiah Smith, I think it gives these other guys, you've got great route runners on this team. Like, they're going to be, Carnell Tate's probably going to get 750, 800 yards this year just because he's going to get one-on-one opportunities because defenses are forced to pay more attention to Jeremiah Smith. So I really like what this team has going for them in the wide receiver room. But in terms of tight end, you got Max Clare, the transfer from Purdue, got an 89 rating on him. I think he's a really good player. He's 6'4", 240 pounds. I mean, if you want to talk about an athletic tight end, Max Clare is one of the most electric athletes in this entire tight end room, or in the entire country. What he did at Purdue last year, I don't think his numbers are going to really give you an idea on how impactful Max Clare was for Purdue. A lot of attention that defenders were giving him because he was the only reliable weapon for the Boilermakers. He is a great route runner. He reminds me a lot of Dalton Kincaid out of Buffalo because his route running ability is phenomenal. I think he just knows how to move. He knows how to set defenders up. He's super fast. He's explosive. You can play him in line. You can play him in the slot, which is probably where he is going to be utilized with this Ohio State team. If they run 12 personnel, I think Max Clare is going to be the guy that, spreads out a little bit because what he does as a pass catcher is really, really impressive. He's great of moving. What I loved most about Max Clare is when protection kind of breaks down and the quarterback gets out of the pocket, his ability to kind of follow the quarterback's eyes, settle into the soft spot. He is a really smart, high IQ football player as a receiver. You want to see a little bit more from him as a blocker. There were definitely some limitations that he had there. Felt a little light, felt like he was pushed around a little bit easy, but man, he is a really good player. And I think he could be one of the best tight ends in the country this year. Could be the best Ohio State tight end in a very long time. Has a chance to be a first-round pick this year. In terms of depth, you bring back Will Kaczmarek. Ended up playing a little bit for them. More down the stretch. A guy that played at Ohio, transferred in. He's been a good player. I don't think he's a great athlete. Didn't see the field much. Not much of a receiver. Just very limited targets. But I think he's got strong hands, good lower body, and a guy that is going to be a great blocker. I think there's definitely potential there. I got him as an 80. He'll play a lot in blocking snaps. Bennett Christian, another guy, his dad played football at Tennessee. Another one of these good blocking type of tight ends. I thought he needs a little bit more technique refinement in terms of his blocking. I thought he lunged a little bit. Another guy that just did not bring anything as a receiver. And then Jelani Thurman, again, really raw as a route runner, not a great blocker. But he's got good hands, he plays physical, and he's a great athlete. So there's definitely some potential, just very limited stuff that we have seen out of Bennett Christian. So overall, I think that this is a really interesting Ohio State weaponry group. You've got speed, you've got physicality. I think Max Clare could be another guy that just absolutely lights the world on fire. So I really like this group, and they're going to be one of the hardest teams to stop offensively in the country. Can the offensive line do their part? That's another question because they lost a ton on this offensive line. But I do actually like some of the guys that you have. I'm actually going to work right to left instead of left to right here. Phillip Daniels, I got the arrow pointing up. Look, I'm not going to lie, though. I am a little bit concerned about Phillip Daniels as a player because he played a little bit last year for Minnesota, and he's really, really raw. He's a great athlete, particularly in the run game. He's 6'5", 315 pounds. He's got the length. He's got the size. But man, his footwork is really inconsistent. He is tight in his lower half. He got beat by quickness way too frequently to my liking. He plays high, doesn't have a ton of power with his hands, and there's just a lot of inconsistencies he's going to have to clean up. I've got him as an 80 overall because I think the traits are in there, and I obviously have the arrow pointing up. But if Phillip Daniels cannot be consistent, this could be a rough year for this Ohio State offensive line because I think a lot is riding on him as a result. For the right guard position, you got Tegra Shabola. I got a 77 on the graphic. He is an 84 in my notes, so take that as you will. Was a great player for Ohio State last year, though. Fantastic frame at 6'6", 327 pounds. He's one of the smartest blockers on this team. He picks up blitzes well. He is an impact run blocker. He brings power. He brings nastiness. He's obviously got the big frame. There are things that I really like about his game. He does kind of play high, and I felt like there were a ton of instances where he's just lunging a lot. He's got to clean that up. His anchor is going to need to improve a little bit, but I do think he is a good right guard that is going to be impactful for this team. Carson Hinsman, the starting center, started in 9 games last year when Seth McLaughlin went down, and he's a good player. His footwork, his hands, really solid. He's a great help blocker, chips well on the inside. He makes some plays happen as a run blocker. He's a little bit undersized. He's 6'5", 300 pounds, and because of that, he struggled against more power rushers. He was a little bit heavier on his feet, lunged a little bit, but I like the traits that he has. I think he's a good overall athlete, and I got an 82 rating on him. The left side of the line is where I have the arrows pointing up. Luke Montgomery started in 2 games in 2024, and look, I'm not going to beat around the bush. It wasn't pretty. He was 6'5", 308 pounds. He was overpowered. I thought overset, got beat way too often in one-on-one situations. He's really raw, was not a great help blocker. Obviously, he was limited in terms of his size, but same thing with Phillip Daniels. And the reason I got the arrow pointing up, he has a lot of really good traits. The athleticism is there. He moves really well in space. I thought he was a good run blocker based on kind of the expectations. He had some decent flashes with his hands and pass protection, but you want to see a little bit more from him there. But I do think he's got potential to be a really fun player. But the guy I'm most excited to see is Ethan Onionwa out of Rice, the transfer from Rice. I think he's got the potential to be a first-round pick. And I know some people are going to say that that's nuts. I really like this guy. He has what you want in terms of a tackle. He's 6'6", 345 pounds. So he's already got an absolutely elite frame and elite size. But he's an experienced veteran. He's played left tackle. He's played right tackle. He's an excellent pass protector. I think he only allowed 1 sack on the year last season. He's great with his hands. He's got fantastic anchor. He knows how to set up offensive linemen to win in those one-on-one sets. He's a good help blocker, good recovery blocker. My big concerns with Onionwa come as a run blocker because he just, time and time again, he was unable to connect with defenders in the second level. He was not a great, he didn't do a good job of climbing. He felt like a bit of a lumbering mover at times. But if you want one of the best pass protecting tackles, Onionwa is going to be that guy. He is really talented. He's got all the traits that you could want in a player. We'll see if he can take the next step as a run blocker. I think that's what this team is relying on. But I've got an 86 rating on him, and I think he's got the opportunity to raise that throughout the year. In terms of depth, they've got some interesting players. You got the Armstrong brothers and Deontay and Devontae. In terms of Deontay, he is a left tackle. He's a player that just didn't have a lot of tape out there. He's got a good frame. He's continuing to grow into it. The athletic traits are there. I liked how well his hands moved, especially in the Under Armour events, but didn't play in 2024, redshirted. He's a little bit undersized at 6'6", 298. Still has a ways to go for me. Carter Lowe, I actually do like. I've got the eyes on him because the frame is phenomenal. He's 6'6", 341 as a true freshman. And he plays really big. He's an absolute mauler, hits with an incredible amount of power. He's got good potential in pass protection. I just wanted to see him do a better job of landing blocks on the move, doing a better job in terms of his body control. Thought he overextended a little bit more than I'd like to see, but I got a 75 rating on him as a true freshman. And then in terms of other tackles, Ian Moore is the guy I do kind of like. Played 39 snaps as a true freshman. The size is there at 6'6", 309, but he's a good athlete, great foot quickness, and in one-on-one situations in a phone booth, I think Ian Moore has the potential to be great. His hand placement, a little bit up and down, as well as his balance, but I think he could be a nice piece. I got a 77 rating on him. Javon McFadden, another true freshman, 6'4", 285, played inside and outside in high school. Generates good leg drive in the run game, but has to continue to add on weight. Needs a little bit more in pass protection. Just thought he was really raw in that phase. Wanted to see a little bit more. And then Justin Terry, 75 overall, didn't play for West Virginia last year. He's 6'5", 338. Has the size, has the length, but incredibly raw in terms of his technique. Defenders work into his chest a little bit too easily, needs some work as a run blocker. I don't think Terry is going to play much this year for the Ohio State offensive line. And then we talk about the interior. Gabe Van Sickle didn't play in 2024, but a solid athlete, consistently was able to climb into the second level, land blocks in the run game. He's not the greatest power blocker, didn't show me a ton in pass protection, but again, a nice depth piece to have. The other Armstrong brother, Devontae, I like a little bit less. 6'5", 303. He played with his brother, obviously, but not a lot of tape. Not a super heavily recruited player. He does have the ideal frame, but I just don't think he's ever really going to see the field for this team. Joshua Padilla has a wrestling background. You love to see that. Good run blocker in space. Powerful hands. Just not a great athlete, and I don't think he's got great traits. He's 6'4", 295. Jake Cook generates a lot of praise due to his off-field work ethic. He's got fantastic hit power, explosiveness, good chip blocker on the inside, but not super explosive. And I just don't think he's got the greatest length or measurements in the world at 6'5", 298. Austin Searfeld played 425 snaps for this Ohio State offensive line last year. He played everywhere on the offensive line, left side, right side, center a little bit. He's a good mover. He's got good hands in a one-on-one situations, but has to hold up better at the point of attack. I thought his balance was bad, disengaged a little bit too early, not a great help blocker, and just didn't recognize blitzes all that well. 6'5", 320, though, definitely a world where he could be a good player for this team. And then Julian Goins-Jackson, he was a player that transferred from Youngstown State to Ohio State a couple years ago, but just not really a guy that his measurements aren't ideal at 6'1". He's just a guy that hasn't played a lot outside of the Youngstown State year, so I got him as a 70 rating. But look, this is an offensive line that has been completely overhauled. A lot of question marks, particularly on the interior for me outside of right guard. And can Phillip Daniels and Ethan Onyanwa be the right bookend tackles for this team? That's going to be the question mark. We will see, but I do think this team has a little bit of a ways to go. So that does it for the offense. Let's talk about Matt Patricia's defense now, starting with the defensive line. Now, this is a weird group because obviously the interior, I think I'm lower on than a lot of people. The edge room is good. So let's start with the edge room. You got Caden Curry, who is the first guy here. I got the arrow pointing up. Played 231 snaps in 2024, and there's some stuff that I like. He's a good tackler, hits really hard, athletically, I really like. He's a good mover in the open field, plays with a very high motor. He's got great hustle, had some really nice plays as a contributor on special teams. My issue with him, I want to see more power in his game. He's 6'3", 260, doesn't really have much of a plan as a pass rusher. Felt like he tried to win a lot with his bend and quickness, and I didn't love that, and he just didn't disengage from blocks at the level that I wanted to see. So a little bit lower on him. I got him as a 78 with the arrow pointing up. The other starter is Kenyatta Jackson, who I've got an 85 with the arrow pointing up. Excellent speed around the edge. He is a true speed rusher. I wouldn't be shocked if they play him in some off-ball linebacker situations. They dial him up as a blitzer. But he played inside, he played outside. His spin move was phenomenal. He is a good run defender. I'd like to see him develop a bull rush. I think his hands are good as a pass rusher. There's definitely traits there, which is why I rate him so high. But not great against power, and he's got to improve his tackling. Missed a lot of tackles for Ohio State last year. Gonna have to clean that up. But if he can, he could be one of the best rising pass rushers in college football this year. I don't think that's too crazy to say. But the guy I really, really like on this team is Logan George. Logan George is a player that a lot of you probably aren't familiar with. George is a transfer from Idaho State, an FCS school that brings a lot of really interesting traits to the edge rusher position that I like. He knows how to get skinny between offensive linemen. He knows how to split linemen, blow plays up in the backfield. Great run defender, which I really liked. I thought he was disciplined. He made plays with his eyes, and he had some decent explosiveness off the line of scrimmage. What I really liked about him, though, he just knows how to win. He knows how to consistently set defenders up, win with a swipe or a bend or whatever it may be. He knows how to win with pass rush moves. He doesn't have a great power rush profile. He's making the jump from the FCS. You're going to need to develop a counter move. That's really the big question mark around him. Yes, he has the initial move. He can get into his swipes. He can get into all that. But if that move doesn't work, he doesn't really have a secondary move that he was able to consistently break out. If he can do that, watch out for Logan George to be one of the big rising stars in college football. I've got an 82 or an 83 rating on him. I got an 83. I like him quite a bit. I would start him over Caden Curry. If I was Ohio State, if I was Matt Patricia, that would be my decision. But obviously I'm not the defensive coordinator. They also brought in Bo Atkinson out of North Carolina. Great run defender. Another guy with just really high effort, motor, good bend around the edge, but just didn't have a lot of great traits. I didn't think he was a super elite athlete, stiff in his lower half, didn't rush with any sort of a plan. He just tried to win with speed around the edge. He didn't have great speed, played with pretty high pads, and I didn't love that. And he missed 18% of his tackles. So I got a 77 rating on him because I do think at the very worst, he could be an active run defender and could be a nice, flamethrower off the edge for you, but not a guy I'm super high on. Zion Grady, a true freshman for this team, is a good athlete, and he's got great length, great quickness, has a nice up and over move, good bend, but a little bit undersized, 6'4". I wouldn't say that, but he does need to continue to grow into his frame, develop a little bit more power. He's 6'4", 246. I got a 75 rating on him. As for Dominic Kirks, another 75 overall, played 7 snaps for the Buckeyes last year. There's not a lot of tape available on him, but the tools are there. He's got a big frame. He's shown the ability to be an inside and outside contributor. He's good with his hand on the dirt and a guy that I think could win with both power and finesse. He's still growing into his frame a little bit. I don't know if he's going to play more on the interior or the edge. He was listed as a defensive tackle coming out of high school. He's 255 pounds, though, so I have him listed as an edge rusher. I'm going to be interested to kind of see what he is at the next level. CJ Hicks is the other guy. Very curious to see how they're going to utilize him. I watched a little bit of his tape. This is a guy, though, that's really hard to project. Hicks played more linebacker in high school, but he projects to being an edge rusher, and that's kind of where they're going to utilize him in this role. Absolutely elite athlete. He drops into coverage. He's a great blitz threat. His edge tape is scarce, but he has the traits at 6'3", 233 to do it. At the very worst, I could see him being like a Chop Robinson type of player. Does he have the pass rush moves? That's the question marks, but I got a 79 rating on him. He has been impactful for Ohio State as a rotational linebacker. I see no reason why he can't be at least a serviceable, edge rusher for this team. And I got the arrow pointing up. we'll see kind of what happens, but I definitely think he's got potential. Joshua Mickens, 6'3", 233, a four-star recruit in the 2023 class. I thought he did a good job of converting speed to power. He's got heavy hands, good bend, just a bit of an unorthodox mover, and needs to continue to get bigger at 6'3", 233. And then the last edge rusher is Ippy Citinelli. I know I butchered that name, so I do apologize. He plays physical, though. He does a good job of playing through contact. He generates some speed to power, good bend, good burst off the line of scrimmage. Just wanted to see him win with a little bit more than his bull rush. Develop a nice swim or a spin, something a little bit more consistent. And he's got to get bigger. He's 6'5", 220 pounds. He's got a little bit of a ways to go. I don't expect him to play as a freshman, but I liked what I saw from him. In terms of defensive tackles, you got Caden McDonald as your starter right now. I have him low as a 77. I actually thought he was a sneaky good athlete at 6'3", 326. Had some plays where he was chasing down running backs and he made good plays in space. He's a good run defender in the middle, and that's kind of his role. He is a space eater. He knows how to, play the gaps well, plug holes. I thought there were really good stuff there, but for a guy as big as he is, he should not be getting pushed off the ball as often as he did. And he's got to be more consistent as a pass rusher. Be more active with your hands. Like, show something. I just didn't see that from him. I have him as a 77. I do think he could have a breakout year, but without the elite pass rush traits or burst, I have some question marks. So I have him a little bit lower, but I do really like Edric Houston. Played 141 snaps for this team. He's going to need to add on a little bit more weight. He's 270 pounds, so if he's going to play full-time on the inside, he's got to get bigger. But I think his ability to stack and shed blockers was really impressive. He's explosive. He burst through gaps, blew plays up. He showed active hands, and he showed the ability to win in one-on-one opportunities. Edric Houston could be the next great interior defensive lineman from Ohio State, and I would be willing to bet that happens. I really liked his tape last year. He played in limited snaps, but the snaps that he played in, he was impactful, he made plays, and I really like his game. As for depth on the interior, this is really the biggest weakness for me of the entire Ohio State team. The interior of their defensive line could be rough. Will Smith Jr., you have 6'4", 288. He's great in his short area quickness. He's got good hands. He could be a nice pass rusher. And is an okay tackler. Former shot put and discus player, but he's 6'4", 288. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the quickest guy, nor is he the strongest guy. I thought all of those areas were kind of weaknesses for him. So I think he could be a baseline depth piece, high-end maybe depth piece, but not a guy I expect to be super impactful. Eric Mensah, a 73 overall, played 7 snaps last year. Good run defender, good explosiveness, but just not very strong and needs more of a pass rush plan. That's kind of what it comes down to. Just felt very stiff with his hands. Definitely more of a developmental nose tackle type of guy. You got Jason Moore, who I do like. 4-star recruit in the 2023 class. Great get off and quickness with good hands in the passing lanes. He batted down some balls there. Plays low to the ground, and he's able to stack blockers. He's able to generate power from his lower body, and he can play inside and outside. He's 305 pounds, but I would like to see him improve his technique as a pass rusher because he's over-reliant on his power. He's got to develop a move or two, and if he could do that, I think he could start over Caden McDonald, but we just haven't seen that. And then you got Tywone Malone, which is one of my favorite names. Seems like he's been in college for a while, just unproductive throughout his college career. He's got good burst off the line of scrimmage and is a solid run defender, but he doesn't have a lot of pass rush upside and plays very high. Played 95 snaps last year, was a 4-star recruit in 2021. Just not a lot of production from Malone at Ohio State, and I don't think he's going to play a lot this year. So the interior of this defensive line could be an issue. Like if Edric Houston doesn't take that step, they don't have a lot there. That concerns me. And obviously, they might have a 2 or 3-star that could step up. I only talk about the big-time recruits that are listed on our lads, so I do apologize if I'm missing anybody there. But, yeah, I am worried about the interior of this defensive line. As much as I like Edric Houston, and I think Caden McDonald's a Serviceable player. There are question marks that I have without a doubt. But this defensive line as a whole, I think, is the area outside of quarterback where I have the most concerns. A lot of unprovenness. As much as I like Jackson, I like Curry, I like George, I think Hicks could be good. Like, that's 4 guys. If even 2 of those guys hit, you're cooking. But if they don't, it could be a rough year for the Buckeyes defensively. But the linebacker group, I don't think you're going to have any issues with. You got Sonny Styles, who's one of my favorite players in college football, a former safety converted linebacker. I mean, I loved him as a safety prospect, and he moves to linebacker, and I think he's a borderline first-round caliber player. Great size, 6'4", 235. He's got good blitzing timing. He can defend the run really, really well. He just gives so much versatility to your defense. He can play in the slot because he's really good in coverage. He can play, in that safety role. You can play him in the box. You can play him everywhere, and I love that about him. He can blitz. He's a good downhill player, one of the most reliable tacklers in the entire country, but I don't think he's the greatest athlete in the world. I don't think he has the most elite one-on-one coverage reps. I think he's great in zone coverage. He's a really smart player. His reps are really good. But in terms of his man-to-man stuff, he had some fluidity concerns. He's not great in terms of his change of direction, and I think his long speed's a little up and down. He missed a little bit more tackles than I'd like to see, but he's still a very reliable tackler. Like, Sonny Styles is one of the guys on this team that I have the least question marks about. I know he's going to be a great player for this team. We've seen it for the past 2 years. I expect more of the same. Arvell Reese, though, I have the arrow pointing up. I really liked this guy. 6'4", 238 pounds, played a little bit as a true freshman, and he's got the size you're looking for at the linebacker position. He's big, he's long, he utilizes his length really well, particularly as a tackler. A lot of really good chase down tackles, shoelace type tackles that I really liked. The athleticism, it's there. He checks the boxes as an athlete. I think he's got good speed. I think he's got good quickness to trigger. Similarly to Styles, I didn't think he had the greatest change of direction. And again, didn't see a lot from him in coverage that I absolutely loved, but he was a spot starter at times for Ohio State last year. I like Arvell Reese. I think the potential is there for him to be another great linebacker. They lost Cody Simon. I think they're going to have some really good play out of Arvell Reese this year. And the depth is fantastic. You got Peyton Pierce, played 31 snaps last year, but great trigger as a run defender. He's got athleticism. He's got speed. He's got quickness. Want to see more from him in coverage, but as a redshirt freshman, athletically, Pierce has what you're looking for. As for Tarvos Alford, another true freshman linebacker, have him as a 76. A 4-star recruit, another just phenomenal athlete. I think he's an above-average tackler. I think he's a great downhill run defender. Again, coverage, you need to see more from. It's hard to really get a gauge on how good some of these young linebackers are in coverage until they get on the field. He just seems to find himself in a lot of bad spots. That's kind of the issue that I have with Alford, but a good player nonetheless. Then you bring in Ty Howard, the transfer from Duquesne. He's an interesting player. Low-level FCS school. He's been a really reliable tackler. Duquesne used him a lot as a blitz threat, but he's 6'1", 195 pounds. Very undersized. I don't really know how they're planning to use him. So I have a 73 rating on him. Just very limited tape on him out there as well. The guy I really like, though, is Riley Pettijohn, the 4-star recruit, 6'2", 220 pounds. But, man, I just said it's hard to really get a gauge on how good some of these young freshmen are in coverage. Pettijohn is the exception. He is a really smart coverage player. He can play one-on-one. He can play zone. I think his eyes are really good, and I definitely love that about his game. He's got a nice long frame for the position. He's got great range athletically. He could be a downhill presence. My only thing, can he be more consistent at getting off of blocks? That's really what I want to see from him. With a very high-ranked 4-star and a guy that I absolutely think can be an impact player for this team as a true freshman, similarly to what you saw from Arvell Reese. I think he's going to play probably 300 to 400 snaps this year and be a contributor for this defense in some way, shape, or form. You also have Garrett Stover, track background, a 4-star recruit in the 2024 class, played just 1 snap. Gonna need to get bigger at 220 pounds, gonna need to get stronger. Not great in coverage again, but just excellent as a downhill player, good blitzer. Kind of was a hybrid safety linebacker back in high school. I think there's definitely a world where you could see him do that in college. But great athleticism, great fluidity, certainly traits there that I like about Stover. This linebacker room in the middle of the defense is really, really solid. You got Sonny Styles, one of the 5 or 10 best linebackers in the entire country. You feel really confident about what you have in that room. And Arvell Reese, the arrow's going up. I think I really like Riley Pettijohn, and they've got a lot of depth in this room. So the linebacker room is one that I feel very confident in, and if they're going to play cover 0, I expect you to get some of these guys on the field. All of these guys, I think, have downhill potential. They can blitz. Then if you can get a little bit more in coverage, I think you could be absolutely cooking in this Ohio State room. But let's wrap this up talking about the secondary. And I know, man, there's so much I want to say about this secondary. I kind of want to start... We'll start with Jermaine Matthews because one of the most impressive corners I watched, and he barely played for this team. He was kind of a rotational piece. I want to say he played around 300 to 400 snaps last year for the Buckeyes. Really got more snaps as the year went on, but I think we'll talk about it's hard with this team because he's got really good physicality. He's a good run defender. I think you can dial him up as a blitzer. You can play him in the slot. You can play him on the boundary. You can play him in off-man coverage. You can play him in press. He's got good ball skills. The closing speed's good. I thought he had good tackling. But, well, this kind of tied in perfectly to Davison Igbenogson. I like this Ohio State cornerback room. I think Igbenogson and Matthews are 2 guys that could be picked in the top 100 of next year's draft. These guys have major penalty question marks, though. Both of them are uber physical. They play really hard at the catch point. And while that's great, Igbenogson had 16 penalties last year. Matthews had penalties and very few amount of snaps last year. I also, continuing the Matthews conversation, I just don't think he's the greatest athlete. I think he's great in short areas. His long speed concerns me. I think you might be best suited at playing him in terms of an off-man zone coverage scheme. I think that's where he is going to be at his best. But yeah, this team has to be more disciplined. That was an issue that this team had in the secondary. Igbenogson especially has to be, but I think the same goes with Matthews. I got the arrow pointing up on Matthews because he played in such limited snaps, and when he was on the field, he was phenomenal. As for Igbenogson, we'll just get into that. He's so talented. The traits are there. Strong tackler, excellent size and length at 6'2", 193 pounds, blazing speed, fluid hips, good run defender. It's all there for him. But I don't think the ball skills have really come along for him. I want to see him do a better job at jumping passing lanes and getting more pass breakups and interceptions. But more importantly, 16 penalties in 1 year is absurd. Absolutely absurd. That cannot happen again if you are Ohio State, and you'd have major problems if it did. He's going to have to clean that up, but I definitely think he is a above average starting corner. Lorenzo Styles is your nickel. I wouldn't be shocked if he is not the starter at the end of the year. He's got good athleticism, fluidity, speed is there, but not a great tackler, and I thought defenders were able to work their way behind him a little bit too easily. And kind of the reason I say that I wouldn't be shocked if he's not the starter, I would move Matthews to the slot and start true freshman Devin Sanchez. We talked about it in the intro. This is only a slightly downgraded cornerback room, strictly because Devin Sanchez, I have the firework on him, which stands for a true freshman breakout. It was on Quincy Porter, it's on Devin Sanchez, and we got it on another guy as well. Number 1 corner in the class, member of the 247 Freaks list, ran track in high school. I mean, incredibly fluid hips. This guy can stop and go on a dime, change directions better than just about any corner I've ever watched. His ball skills are phenomenal, whether it be pass breakups, jumping passing lanes. He mirrors routes exceptionally well. He's got high football IQ. He's got blazing speed to play on the boundary. Zone instincts are awesome. And he's 6'2", 185 pounds. This guy's going to see the field this year. I think he could start for this team. If you move Matthews to the slot, you keep Igbenogsom on the right side, and you play Devin Sanchez, that is a cornerback trio that I think could be electric. I really, really like Devin Sanchez. I think he is going to absolutely be an impact player, as well as Aaron Scott. I think Aaron Scott is another good player. Plays with physicality, has ball skills, has the length to be a good boundary corner. Maybe needs to get a bit better as a tackler. Continuing to add strength, I think, is going to be really important for him. He's 6 foot, 185 pounds, but I do like his game. And then Bryce West, the other backup nickel right now, I like him a little bit better than I like Styles, even though Styles is rated a little higher. Another guy that can be a little bit physical. He gets grabby at the catch point at times, but athletically, he's got phenomenal range, hits hard for the position. He's got great length to play the boundary, but he's physical. He can match up in one-on-one. At 5'11", 196, Bryce West is likely going to stick to being a nickel, but I definitely think he's got the traits to play on the boundary. In terms of depth, outside of that, you got Deontay Griffin. I just don't think he's going to play. The lowest rated guy in this series so far. He's a 68 overall, was a former preferred walk-on and just hasn't seen the field much. His grandfather, I believe, won 2 Heisman trophies, but I just don't see him ever being an impact player here. Jordan Woods, a true freshman, 3-star. He's not the greatest athlete in the world, but has a good frame at 6'3", 175, a good tackler, good run defender. Definitely could see him being a safety down the line, just because I don't think he's got great ball skills, and I just don't know if he's got the athleticism to stick at corner. And then you got Miles Lockhart, again, a little bit undersized, 5'9", 193 pounds, and he's not super fast. But I loved what he showed in off-man coverage, what he showed in zone. Can tackle, can defend the run. The ball skills are there as well. So that's the cornerback room, but let's talk about Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs, we came into this draft cycle, and everyone's like, well, there are 2 guys that I expect to be, top 10 picks, and it's Peter Woods and it's Caleb Downs. I'm like, all right. Caleb Downs, you hear about him at Alabama. I'm like, okay. I'm like, he's a really great player. You see him this year at Ohio State, and then everyone's like, oh, he's like Eric Berry. He's like a generational safety prospect. And I'm like, look, I've watched a lot of Ohio State football. I think he's there. Let me look at the tape and like really see what this guy can do. Caleb Downs might be the best football player in the country if we're talking positions. I know we talked about Jeremiah-Smith incredibly high. Caleb Downs doesn't have a weakness in his game. I mean, that is not an exaggeration. Like, I'm watching the tape. I'm like, okay, going through my checklist of what I want in terms of safety. Size, he checks that box. Can he play in the box? Can he play in the slot? Yep. He's versatile. He checks that box. Is he a good run defender? Yep. Reliable tackler. Had over 100 tackles as a true freshman. Checks that box. Can he play in one-on-one coverage? Yep. Checks that box. Is he good over the top? Yep. Does he have good speed? Yep. Every single box that you want him to check, he checks. He has everything you want in a safety prospect. The speed, the physicality, the coverage upside, the blitzing upside, the run defense, the versatility. Everything is there for him to be a top 3 pick. And look, I know safeties don't get drafted very highly. If Caleb Downs is a top 3 pick, it's a good pick. I think Caleb Downs is that good of a player. I think he's better than Kyle Hamilton was, and Kyle Hamilton has been phenomenal. I think the one thing, maybe he can get better at getting off of blocks at times, and sometimes I think his eyes can get a little bit stuck in the backfield. Those instances are few and far between. Caleb Downs has the American flag because, well, I think he's going to be an All-American, and I know I didn't have it on here. Jeremiah-Smith as well as an All-American. Jalen McClain is the other safety. He's a fluid athlete, played 107 snaps. The block shedding is going to have to get better, going to need to be a better run defender, but I think the instincts are there. The closing speed's solid. The tackling is definitely solid as well. Versatility to play anywhere in the defensive backfield is definitely there for him. The arrow's pointing up. The traits are there. I think he's going to have a really solid season for the Buckeyes. But again, another true freshman that I think could step onto the scene, Fahim Delane. His brother Mansour plays at LSU, but he's just got a frame ready for the college level. He's 6'1", 210 pounds. He just comes in with athleticism, the ability to trigger, the ability to play virtually anywhere in the defensive backfield, hits hard, great coverage feel. I don't think he's going to be a great roaming free safety, probably going to be best as a strong safety, play more in the box. Just got lost on some of the deep balls, and just the ball was able to fly over his head a little bit. I'd play him as that strong safety, and you got Caleb Downs who can do some of the other stuff for you. Wouldn't be shocked if by the end of the year, Delane is starting in the safety room. And then you got Malik Hartford, a guy I got my eyes on, another really good player. Hard hitter, special teams ace, just blocked multiple kicks in high school, can play everywhere in the defensive backfield, hits hard, great athlete, great speed, strong coverage instincts in zone. He's 6'3", 194. Maybe could bulk up as a little bit thin, but definitely a guy I have my eyes on at 77 overall. Leroy Roker III, solid athlete, explosive in the open field, just more of a developmental guy. I don't think he'll play much this year. Still a raw project, needs to get stronger. He's 6'1", 175 pounds. And then Keenan Nelson, 6'1", 185, hasn't played much. The ball skills weren't great. He's not an elite athlete. Good tackler, good run defender, just not super elite range. The secondary is the biggest strength, I think, outside of the receiver room on this Ohio State team. They've got depth, they've got superstars, they've got the guys that can force turnovers, they got good run defenders, and they can do a lot of different things for you. But let's talk about this team's schedule and the betting odds and kind of where I think this team's going to finish. The schedule's not easy. The schedule is certainly not easy for this Buckeyes team. You got Texas in week 1 of the year. That game is going to be one of the most hyped up games of the college football season. But you got to go to Washington on September 27th. Washington's going to be much better. Minnesota on October 4th. They're not a pushover. At Illinois, October 11th. They're probably a top 15 team in college football. You got Penn State November 1st. Then you obviously have the team up north on November 29th. That's a bunch of games that, they're not gimmies for Ohio State this year. I think their ceiling, their over-under is 10.5 wins. If I was a betting man, I think I would take the under. I think this team is going to win 8 or 9 games this year. And I know that sounds crazy, but we talked about it. They are 70th in returning production. They lost a ton of talent on the offensive line, on the defensive line, and the quarterback is a question mark. I think they'll lose the Texas game. Yes, it's a home game. I think Texas is a better roster. I think their defensive line is a little bit better. I think Illinois could be one of the big shockers of the college football season. I would take Penn State. And right now, with the way history has gone, I don't know if I could bet on Ohio State to beat the team up north right now, especially on the road in the Big House. They're plus 500 to win the national title, plus 190 to win the conference. I would not take either of those bets. They have the 5th ranked recruiting class. They are 70th in returning production. But look at the weaknesses. D-line, a lot of question marks there. The quarterback room, what is it going to look like? Is Julian Sand the guy? We don't know. And is this running back room going to be good enough? In terms of strengths, your wide receiver room is electric. You got the best player in college football, and maybe the second best player in college football in the secondary, which is also a big strength. I think the linebacker group is really talented, but ultimately, I think Ohio State is going to maybe miss the playoffs this year. I know that sounds crazy. This is obviously my ranking on them going into the year. I'm going to take the under on the 10.5 wins. I just think the schedule is tough. The out-of-conference schedule is easy. They got some easy opponents in there at Purdue, UCLA. Rutgers is not an easy opponent, but I think they can win those games. But I think that Illinois game, Penn State, Texas, and Michigan, those 4 teams that kind of scare me. So ultimately, that's my thoughts on the Ohio State Buckeyes this year. I just don't know if this team is going to be as talented, particularly in the trenches, and I have question marks around the quarterback. But I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you guys think? Do you think the Buckeyes are going to run it back? Do you think they're a playoff team this year? Would love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. Leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.